Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Martin Scorsese's Cape Fear from 1991. Yes, back again here, and finally, I would say, here with a great film to review. Yes, Cape Fear, here is on Blu-ray, and recently picked this one up. Surprisingly, I'd only just got the Blu-ray of this film, because yes, I've seen this many, many times, and of course, a Scorsese film here, a remake of the 1962 film, which I have never seen, actually, surprisingly. But yes, here we are, and spoilers alert, if you've not seen this film, there will be some quite in-depth, maybe, discussion on the plot, especially towards the end of the film and stuff, so yeah, just be warned, and yes, the last few weeks, of course, mainly been uploading, stuff that I wouldn't really consider great. Yeah, in fact, I think this is the first film for about a month that I've kind of uploaded to this channel that I do consider a great film. And I think last week and stuff, and the other day actually I watched Apocalypse Now, rewatched that. Of course, I consider that great, greater than this, but I've just not got around to reviewing that, so that's what I mean there. And yes, what a better way to return with greatness to the channel with Scorsese. Just one of my very, very favourite filmmakers. What a legend! This guy is epic. This guy is so amazing, and here we are, a really, really underrated film in my opinion. This is a remake, of course, of the 1962 version, of course, and yes, just yeah. I've seen this many, many times, as I've said, and it's just a film that I really think I can't quite understand how it's so. It gets a lot of hate at times. It's just more of a divisive film, which is fine. I really want to check out the original. It clearly seems, even though I've not seen the film, that it's very, very different. And stuff, but one of the things that is kind of in common, other than of course it being a remake and stuff, the plot and everything, is the kind of influence of style and stuff from Hitchcock, clearly, and stuff, and the Bernard Herrmann score is actually reworked in this film by Elmer Bernstein, and yes, basically it does have this very, very classic feel, this film, and I think that's great. Of course, I love classic cinema, and I prefer it, and it's just so great to see, in this film. Obviously, the difference here as well, while it is more of a classic film, is the violence. This is one violent film, and it just really is a shocking kind of use of violence in the film. Really, really disturbing, especially in the second half. Of course, this escalates like one of them classic thrillers, but it really does become really, really shocking in its violence, and it's stylized, of course, but really, really brutal stuff here, of course. And yes, well, obviously the plot is, as we know, this convict, being released 14 years after his crime, being convicted of this crime, and of course we learn, as we know, the stuff that was withheld from the case, information, evidence, of course, by the attorney Sam Bowden, and of course played by Nick Nolte. Wow, he is legendary in this film, and yes, basically this his defense, Max Cady, this criminal, was Sam, back 14 years prior, and of course he's basically out to get revenge, on this character, on this attorney, and his family, and basically, yes, just he is insane. This character of Max, he tries to justify this, but as we know, it can't be justified. Although there is, of course, very, there is some complexities to the film, and this character even of Max, but I can't really say it's kind of something where you feel sympathy for, really, because he's just such a despicable character. But of course, this film is very, very maybe it's certainly, I wouldn't say, well, yes, maybe quite campy at times, but in the best ways, in a way that isn't a flaw or anything. It's just it is kind of it's theatrical, very, very theatrical film. One of the most theatrical Scorsese films, maybe even at times the most, and that's what I love about it. It really, really is just so fun, so big. Kind of just really, really not holding back here, and it's the performance is insane, but absolutely masterful from Robert De Niro. You know, of course, my favorite actor. If you're aware, you know, if you've seen my channel and stuff, what an actor! And of course, we must just, you know, quickly remind ourselves of The Irishman that's coming out this year, and finally reuniting with Scorsese. Wow, but De Niro, it's just my favorite actor, and I think this is kind of an overlooked role at times. You know, it did get a nomination, you know, from the Academy, but yes, of course, losing out to Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs, I would personally, although you know that's a wonderful performance, stunning. As with most of the case, I think I would give this to De Niro if I was, you know, asked, you know, kind of what would be the best performance of the nominations. I'd say this. This is absolutely mind blowing, and you know, just actually very very different to any of the other roles really that he's played. Maybe you could, you know, I really don't think you could compare it to any of his other roles. It's just so well, very theatrical, but just so insane, you know, and just wow, you know, this is a big performance here, and it's, you know, it's a brutal character, someone who is very very scary, I must say, and you know, it starts off as very humorous, but then, you know, while being horrible, of course, but you know, towards the end of the film, it really is just wholly scary stuff, very disturbing. Just the fact that you can kind of look at, you know, characters that De Niro's played throughout his career, you know, in the king of comedy, especially, of course, Taxi Driver with Travis Bickle, you know, one of the most sympathetic characters in film, obviously, but then you look at this, and you know, that just sums it up really. He can do anything, you know, this is just, and you can call it over the top, but it's not, it's just so theatrical, but it's perfected in my eyes. This is just how you do this kind of thing, with what Scorsese was going for here. You know, it's a very theatrical film in everything really. It's not, you know, a film that's made like Raging Bull, or you know, kind of, or films like this, you know, or we could Mean Streets or something like this. You know, it's not kind of any sort of documentary style in any way like this. It's just full on theatrical, cinematic kind of film here, you know, and this is just a spectacle, in my opinion. You know, everything in this film, and of course, yes, it is influenced by Hitchcock, especially I think films like Vertigo, you know, Psycho. Obviously, there's actually a kind of a moment towards the end of the film as well, you know, when De Niro is kind of pretending to be another character. Yes, with Psycho there, it's very influenced. But yes, just I was kind of noticing To Catch a Thief as well, maybe the fireworks scene, maybe that's just me jumping the gun. But yeah, many different influences here in the editing with the camera angles. But it feels like a Scorsese film. You know, all these push-ins, you know, these zooms, you know, all this quick movement, you know, at times. It's here, you know, kind of like Goodfellas and stuff. It really is here. And yes, you know, it's just a combination of all these different traits and influences that just make a wonderful film. Really stunning here. The cinematography overall is just amazing, just so good. You know, it's so kinetic. You know, this is one of the best thrillers of all time, in my opinion. I know it's a very divisive film, but I'm certainly on the positive side, and I say that this is just among the best thrillers I've seen. Really, it really is a stunning film, and a real compelling and moving drama. You know, and this family, of course, Nick Nolte has got a daughter, Danielle, also known as Danny, in the film, played by Juliette Lewis, and she is absolutely brilliant in the film. Actually nominated as well, you know, for an Oscar there. So that's great. And Jessica Lange as well, you know, plays Lee, the wife, and just these performances have been criticised, and I think they're absolutely brilliant. They really are just flawless in my eyes. I think they're so good. You know, they really, you know, these characters put through a lot in the film, we must say, but you know, and these performances, just the way it escalates, you know, and you know, towards that final act, which is just, well, yes, I may say this a lot of my reviews, but a descent into madness. It really is. It's just, you know, and there's loads of symbolism there, quite obvious. But you know, it really is something else. That final act, just in purely of in terms of just a thriller, rising to the climax, to the big final act. You know, this is just perfect in what it's doing, and wow, you know, their moments towards the end of acting, it really is, it's something else. It's so intense, this film, and of course it just rises and rises. In the first act, but you've got the comedy that Scorsese brings, and De Niro brings to most of his films. Certainly back then anyway, and just there's something that you kind of the way it works in harmony with the tension and stuff, and the unbearable amount of tension at times, and just the atmosphere. This is so atmospheric, but the way it's kind of blended with the comedy here, and these moments, it's just really, really perfect. It's such an enjoyable film in the performances. Nick Nolte giving such a great performance here. Everyone in the film, of course. You've got Joe Don Baker as well. He comes into it a lot more in the second half, and as we know, that death there is just, it's really, really sad in my opinion. That is a brutal, brutal moment, in the film, and of course, you've got other appearances as well, from mainly 3 characters that were in the original, including Gregory Peck, makes a little cameo there, and of course, Robert Mitchum being the big one here, quite a big character in the film, and I love all the side characters as well. There's such a humanity to the film, and I love how it's a family, it's kind of about a struggling family, even before he comes into play, Max Cady, but then of course he really does, escalate things, and kind of just, wow, just the desperation throughout the film, for Nick Nolte to kind of just keep his family safe, and of course this constant, obsessive character, Max, following them about, this kind of feeling of paranoia, this really taps into this, Scorsese if he's setting out to kind of do a thriller in this, classic style, Hitchcockian kind of style, then yes, certainly 2 thumbs up from me, because this certainly is a success, and it's just a feeling of paranoia and stuff that really gets under your skin. It's just really, really stunning here, and just so, so felt. The atmosphere is just, wow, it really is something else. And that music, of course, taken from, of course, the Bernard Herrmann score from the original, it just really is something else. It's just, wow. This is just, it's some thriller. Of course, it's a wonderful, masterful character study, in my opinion. And this family and how they deal with this, this kind of event, and things that are kind of exposed from the family, and stuff, and their troubles through this character coming in and kind of upsetting their lives, kind of thing. Their kind of harmony, you could say, or and basically everything they were hiding before he comes into it, kind of gets revealed, you could say, over the course of the film. So it's a very, very interesting film. It's not just, a basic thriller. It really is a complex, layered character study, and just this portrayal of a family that is not all kind of sturdy, if you will, and this it's just as well, one of the best kind of villains in film, I would say. Really, really is. This character of Max Cady is just one of the best, in my opinion. Of course, De Niro is just off the charts in this film. I wouldn't quite say it was in his top, maybe not top 5 performances, but not far off that, in my opinion. It really, really is just one of his very finest, in my eyes. It's just, wow, this is insane, the levels that he goes to towards the end of the film. And I read up that he kind of he got doctors to kind of grind his teeth down, to look more kind of menacing and stuff, and animalistic, and that is something really, really strange. But wow, that's something, this character, the physical kind of presence of this character and everything, and the whole kind of the feel of this character is so felt throughout the film. And of course the way that the kind of, as always, really the lengths that De Niro went to really added to the film. And of course, and I read that he got it kind of got them repaired afterwards and stuff. Insane, really insane, the lengths that he went to in this film. But wow, it paid off. It really, really did. And yes, as I say, it is quite a divisive film. There are a lot of people who would not maybe rank this among his best Scorsese films, and I can't say it's in the top 5, but it really is. It's one of his masterpieces in my eyes. I think, yes, I would call this one a masterpiece. I really want to check out the original, but wow, it's just, it's something else. And I think remakes back then, they're not the same as what they are now. It's not kind of a thing that bugs me as much. I'm always open to a remake. As long as it's just a director or a team trying to do their take on a story, or whatever you would call the source material, and trying to do their own unique spin, and not just trying to kind of remakes today are just not usually in the same vein. It's more for the money and stuff. But back then you've got some of my favourite films. There's quite a few are remakes. The Thing as well, John Carpenter. Scarface. And this is one of the best remakes in my opinion. And I've not seen the original, but because this is just a flawless film, and it doesn't, it just feels like a Scorsese film, but also kind of something that's influenced by his the people he looks up to, one being Hitchcock, and of course one of his favourite films is Vertigo. So yeah, it's very, very Hitchcock really influenced Scorsese, and it's just great to see in this film, and this is just I think as well the use of violence in the film. Wow, it's a shocking film, but it's stylized, and it's kind of it's just the perfect way that he kind of brings the violence to the film. And there's moments throughout this film that are just so disturbing. Of course, that scene where he bites the poor victim's cheek. That is one of the most shocking moments in a film. It breaks her arm, of course. Wow, from that moment, certainly, this is one relentless character who will not stop. Until one of them is dead, that's for sure, and that is the case towards the end of the film. That final, climax there, it's just stunning. Really, this is something that haunts my dreams. The final silence between De Niro and Nick Nolte's characters here. Just that look, you just see him slowly going down into the water there, and you see his eyes, just completely evil, pure evil, looking straight at Nick Nolte. And I think the thing that always gets me is the way that it just it makes basically Nick Nolte's character go completely almost insane as well. This whole experience, this nightmare, that it is, and it's just wow, this is one nightmarish film. I just think the way it kind of this journey of this character, and him trying to keep this family safe and stuff, and balance out his job and everything, and trying to kind of protect them and stuff. It's just towards the end of the film, wow, it's just such a hellish experience, and Nick Nolte just gives a stunning performance in my eyes. Jessica Lange is so good in the film. Juliette Lewis is brilliant. She really, really is. Very difficult performances. It's really, really intense. But wow, they're also perfect in my eyes. I know they're criticised, but it's my take on the film. I think definitely this film maybe deserves a bit more credit. It's not too appreciated, but it's just my take on it, obviously. But yeah, I do think it's one of the best. At least one of the best thrillers of all time, and just definitely one of Scorsese's many masterpieces. There is 10 currently that I've seen. That's all I'll say there. And this isn't high among them, but it's one of them. That's what matters. And therefore, it is one of my favourite films, really, just in general. I think it's a stunning film. It's so enjoyable. Just the comedy of the film, as I've said. I love the location, in the film. All the different locations. Just very, very, nice feeling at first with the family and stuff, and very nostalgic feeling, but then, this kind of intense and constantly compelling, gripping thriller, drama, of course, here, and just very tragic moments throughout the film, with some of the deaths, of course, as we know, Jordan Baker's character there, towards the end of the film, very, very sad to see, and then, you've got the housekeeper as well, getting brutally killed, of course, and it's just a film that's so unbelievable, so shocking. De Niro is under the car, towards the end of the film, and then of course he even follows them, they think they can get away from him, kind of thing, but it's one of them genius thrillers where it just is so executed in how the antagonist is constantly on the case, of these characters, and even even towards the end of the film, he's constantly, they kind of go away from him, and it's not just that, the way it's edited and stuff, and the way it kind of plays into the psychological trauma of the characters, and the kind of the paranoia, and the maybe delusions and stuff that's going on, and how they're seeing this character when he's not there. He's getting into their mind, and that's what he's trying to do. He's one of the kind of most well, he's got a very, very smart villain, of course. He's someone who he kind of knows how to get into the mindset of these characters, and how to kind of really, really get to them, and trying to break up the family, if you will, and try to play around here, and kind of course, deceit, and stuff within the family. The way he kind of gets into the school as well. That's a really disturbing scene there, and of course just Nick Nolte, the desperation as well, and it kind of, this is just it's one complex film really, and it just is really, really stunning in my opinion. The execution, the script is so good here, of course. Spielberg team here, producing and stuff, the production, and actually he was originally going to direct this film. It's kind of a Schindler's List, Cape Fear, very kind of connected here a little bit, and actually Spielberg did basically produce this film, but he didn't want to credit himself, so that's interesting there. He's not officially credited, as a producer, but he did actually do that. He did produce the film. He did take part in this film actually, so that's interesting to know. But yes, this is it's some masterpiece, and certainly one of my favourite thrillers of all time. So yes, as you can tell, I really have nothing negative to say about the film. I love every aspect of this film, and I just think it really is directed to perfection. Just a stunning film. There's not a single thing I don't love about this, as I say, and it's just a constant unfolding of events. This character constantly getting under the skin, even of these side characters as well, not just the family, and it's kind of done in a comical way. First very theatrical, of course, but kind of definitely very much comedy at times as well. But wow, this film turns dark, and it's just because there's hilarious moments at the beginning of the, in the cinema and stuff. When he's laughing, De Niro just gives a hilarious performance at times, but it just really, really gets dark. Kind of a one that is really, really relentless, and this is just, it's so effective as a thriller, as a drama, just as a character study, and it also really, really taps into guilt in many, many ways. But of course, the fact that Nick Nolte's character of Sam, just in general, withheld evidence, that's something that's trying to. Is this kind of he's thinking, is this his comeuppance kind of thing, and he feels guilt, how obviously, because now this is affecting his family, but it's not something that you can kind of justify. This character goes really, really extreme. This is an insane character, and there's no doubt about that. But there's something that of course Sam feels this kind of guilt and regret. It really deals with that. And of course, just in terms of the family stuff, he's been with other people. When he's basically cheated on his wife and all this kind of stuff. And it's a very, very complex film. And it's kind of, it shows the flaws of these characters. Jessica Lange as well. Her character of Lee. And just it's just showing complex individuals. And of course, you've got this villain. This is one of the most disturbing villains of all time, and De Niro doesn't really usually play villains too much, in that sense. Of course, the Untouchables, and stuff, and as Al Capone, of course, but there's a couple of others, but mainly, De Niro, certainly at this time was known for more, protagonists, anti-heroes kind of thing. Raging Bull is not a villain, but it's kind of very, very dark character there. But yes, this is very, very different. This film, that's what I'm saying. Cape Fear, to his usual performances and characters here, and he really can do anything, this guy, and this is just yet another one of the finest performances of all time, in my opinion. when you're talking about the best, even the 10 best De Niro performances, they're right up there. For me, just all-time, performances in film. I think he's just the greatest actor, and this is just one of his best, no doubt. Maybe not top 5, but it's not far off that. For me, really, it just is so good, and it kind of balances the comedy, of course, with the kind of the outrageous brutality. And it's just there's scenes that just kind of balance the comedy and the kind of and this sounds so well. That scene, of course, where Nick Nolte gets he hires these guys to kind of beat up Max, but then it shifts, and wow, that's the moment that when I first saw it as a kid. I watched this as a kid, very young age. I watched this. I've seen it many times, but I was shocked. This is just something. This character can actually come back from this, and then there's that kind of big monologue there, and it's funny, but it's also so disturbing at times. This film, and brutal, and just so dark, and wow, uneasy film. This is just a true psychological thriller that's just so enjoyable and theatrical, but it's really complex and layered. Beneath this, and it's a film that's so well directed, in my opinion. The editing is just stunning, and it just plays into the whole psychology of these characters. The editing's key here, and very Hitchcockian, of course, Kubrickian as well. Kind of thing here. Kubrick clearly some moments in this film that are very, it's very much that as well. But mainly Hitchcock here. But it is a Scorsese film, and this is just, it really is a stunning film, in my opinion, a masterpiece. And yes, it gets into my plus tiers, believe it or not, and it gets an extremely high rating of 100% plus. Tier 2, yes, and it's not one of his, it's not top tier Scorsese really for me, but it doesn't really need to be, because he's such a great director. He's one of the masters, in my opinion, that it's not in his top 5, but it's one of the best films ever made, in my opinion, and it really is just, these characters I love so much. It's such a compelling kind of family drama, what's going for here. It's a thriller, of course, and it's just maybe even a horror film at times. It really is such a disturbing film, and it's a comedy as well at times. It's very comical, this film, and I love that about the film as well. It's one of the things that makes it so good. Just this character is, wow, he's one of the most entertaining characters in a film. Max Cady, played by Robert De Niro here. Wow, just so good. And this is in my top 200 of all time, of course. And it really is stunning. I'm not going to say where it is, among my kind of Scorsese ranking, but it's not, as I said, it's not in my top 5. That's what I'll say. But it's one of his masterpieces for me. And there's 10 of them so far that I've seen. Who knows? There could be more, certainly, and including maybe The Irishman. Let's hope at least. I cannot wait for that film, and as I've said, and this is related here to this review, but I said I will be doing a review, a video of that film, kind of on that film before it's released, just to discuss, this film, and because it's such a big event, The Irishman, and then of course, once I've seen it, I'll do a review. But yeah, I just want to get some discussions going, because I'm so hyped for this experience, The Irishman, more and more every day, and this is of course the 7th collaboration between this film here, Cape Fear, between De Niro, Scorsese, and of course it's the penultimate one, currently. The last being Casino, of course, in 1995, a year before I was born. So yes, The Irishman is a big event, and this film here is one of course, the final performances, that we've had from De Niro in a Scorsese film, and it's just, once again, a stunning performance from my personal favourite actor of all time, and it's just, as always, leave your comments, your thoughts in the comments on this film. We're really interested to see, and of course, I do plan on watching the original at some point, and of course I'll review that as well. But this film, I just think it's just it's so good. Such an enjoyable film. Kind of very theatrical and kind of grand and kind of kinetic, full of energy, as always with a Scorsese like this. And it's also a very, very kind of layered film, and very complex. You can enjoy this video on every level. Surface, kind of these big moments, the constant escalation of this as a thriller, as a drama, but really the subtleties and the kind of symbolism and the kind of the mirroring of characters, perhaps, and the different connections throughout the film, what it's going for here. It's kind of it's showing the complexities and how maybe Nick Nolte's character feels this regret, this guilt, but really, this villain is a villain, in the traditional sense. He really is just an unstoppable force that just wow, you just this character of Sam cannot shake away this villain, and it's so intense, but so funny and stuff as well, and very just peaceful at times early on. But yeah, this is one of my favourite films. It's not my top 100, but I'd say top 200, top 250 for sure. Absolutely, this is one of my favourite films of all time, personally. And yes, tell me your thoughts in the comments. And I kind of wait to see more Scorsese's, of course, that I've not seen, and review films that I have seen from him, and of course The Irishman this year. But yeah, Cape Fear for me is one of his many masterpieces, in my opinion, from one of the masters, Scorsese here, Martin Scorsese. What a legend! And yes, as always, thanks for watching my review.